Just doing another quick video. I got my last box of Summit stuff in the mail the other day. Just a whole heap of quick connect and Dash 6 style hose fittings. And a Corvette, I think it was a C6 Corvette style Wix 33737 filter regulator, which I've already mounted in the chassis rail. So at this stage, I've got the press fit fitting in here for going out to the engine. I've got the quick release, why you're not focusing, I've already got the quick release fittings on there and the Dash 6 fittings going into my pipe. And at this stage the pipe is just running up, around and back, primarily because, let me just try and get this in here without too much shaking and get it to focus. When you go to mount the 1/4 inch NPT fitting, you can't get it to turn, it's too low into the housing for this, so it won't thread in, and you obviously can't press it in, so I'm going to have to get some sort of an extension, male or female, and then have that out here or wherever I end up having it. So I can't finish that bit off, but it's coming along. I've also removed my brake fittings because I'm not going to be running the hard wires anymore for the fuel. I'm running the flexi wire, so they're all coming off and they're just going to go to a single loop, and I'll do the same again on the back. That's just held on by cable ties at this stage, and I'll just cage nut them. And then that'll run from here along that chassis rail to the left hand side one of those, which is your old gearbox cross member. It's going to go across the gearbox cross member into the gearbox, well, not into the gearbox, but above the gearbox, run up here, tee out and along the fuel rail. At this stage I'm still leaning towards a turbo build, so I'll probably end up running the Edelbrock, there's a ProFlow XT with the 92mm intake, and I'll maybe look at getting that machined out to 105 and then run a big mouth throttle body while I'm at it, seeing I'm going to be turbocharging it. More air is good, I suppose, but we'll worry about that later. As far as the engine mounts go, quickly show you those while I'm down here. They're all finished off, so plate on the engine, 2 plates running down to the base, which then sits on the rubber isolator, and those are all tied together by a plate back there, and doing it that way gave me plenty of clearance to the power steering input shaft. I'm also thinking that I might, rather than weld these in place, bolt an L plate in here and in here. That way I can remove this plate entirely and it gets it out of the way if I'm ever doing stuff in the engine bay. It's not necessary, but we'll see. So also with my box of goodies from Summit, I got a key for the ignition for the American Auto Wire system, so I can actually hook up the key and test some of the other circuits. What do we got there? Those are the brake clutch plugs, which I've had for a little while, and I had to have my brake pedal fixed because the thread on the end of that was all gone and I had to have it retapped. And I found either the one out of this truck or the one off my Nova before I rebuilt it, the old park neutral reverse switch. So I'm going to hook that up temporarily until I get a steering column, which I am still trying to order. 87 El Camino tilt, no intermittent wiper, and it looks pretty good in there. I've seen one in a Chevy truck before, so I can play around with that. In the meantime, I've done a bit more wiring. However, the ODBI port is plugged into the 12 volt feed from the clock. I'm not going to be running a clock in the dash, so the 12 volt feed comes down into the ODBI and the battery backup for the ECU. And what else? Oh yeah, the fuel pump control is basically going to go 12 volts out of here to a relay, earthed obviously for the switch side of it, and then coming off the main fuse block I'm basically have a big wire coming out for the fuel pump and then running back down and across the chassis rail with all those other wires back to the fuel pump. If that doesn't work, I'll move the relay into the back, which is where the battery's going to be, and I'll only run a short tracer wire, but we'll worry about that once we get it up and going. Had to cut the trans tunnel a little bit. Basically my middle bar going through here is too high, and this exaggerated is sitting like that on the trans pan, so I need to drop that down, which means taking the crossmember off and getting a new end plate made up to drop it down another 10-15 mils. Other than that, I've decided that I'm going to use the CB wire. This wiring kit comes with something called CB, which I assume is for the radio. But I'm going to use that as my EFI circuit. It comes on when it's switched ignition. And those two wires there run off to the injectors, so that's your injector feeds. And I'll also use it to power the ECU to say, hey, I've turned the key on, and you know, all of that will come live in one hit. So that's the plan at this stage. A little bit more progression, but we are getting there, and it all takes time.